right, with Andy Case, it's Requital, right? That's how you pronounce it.
Requital, yeah. Well, that's how I'm pronouncing it. So,
Yeah. And played at the Under 5 Minute Festival. We played it a few times for the audience feedback, and we also played it at the cinema a
yeah.
couple months back at the Carlton Cinemas in Toronto. It was really well received film, an animation,
Thank
3 minutes. Your tagline is a short animation of how history repeats itself, frustrated.
Yes.
So expand on that. What was the seed of your idea? Why did you make this film?
Well, first of all, I should give credit to my partner. It was actually her idea originally.
Okay,
We were talking about history and things, and she said, "You should make something about that. You should go into that and
that's Heather
create
Douglas,
something."
correct?
Yes, yeah,
Heather. Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Is actually create something from this. Let's not talk about it. Actually, let's create something. So that gave me the idea. And again, it was actually came from her when we were talking this through about having the train because of that rhythm, and obviously, the rhythm of the train being the
Yeah.
beats. Because obviously, there's no dialogue in this short, so it had to speak for itself without, exposition, I suppose. So that was really exciting. And I sat down as you do and wrote and came up with various ideas that were awful as you do, and eventually came around to the idea of obviously with history changing, how obviously the train obviously gets into a newer and newer train, starts off as an old-fashioned train, ends as a modern train, but you see the cycle throughout the film of people who are behaving badly, suppressing others, mistreating others, and then finally the people who've been suppressed get a chance, and then of course not not that surprisingly, sadly, they begin to mistreat others because that does seem to be how humanity works, unfortunately. We just don't seem to learn that we should work together, and just get on, basically. I know it sounds a very simplistic objective,
Yeah,
really, in this day and
sure.
age, but I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, probably not. But just the idea of just getting on with people and not, whatever they're doing in their life is fine as long as it's not hurting others. It's fine, so that's really where that came from, and obviously that hence the tagline of history repeating itself.
So it's the elite or and they're you're using kind of like the sin of gorging, like the sin of like excessive kind of with food, I
Yeah,
guess, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they end up turning into pigs, almost like an animal farm, reversed
I'm glad
animal
you
farm.
picked up
Because
on that
Animal
because
Farm,
that
they are pigs and they turn into humans. In your film,
yes.
they do the opposite, right?
But that was very much part of what I put in there about Animal Farm. So I'm really pleased you picked up on that reference. That's lovely to hear.
Well, yeah, Animal Farm is one of those. But you were inspired by that novel for this
Yeah.
film.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think stories like that, which perhaps I read when I was a lot younger and didn't perhaps understand the depth of what was trying to be said. As I got older, I did understand the depth of what was trying to be said, and then you see it playing out. And as I've got older and older, seen it played out again and again and again.
And then you kind of use them as they turn into kind of gorging pigs, right? And they have no
Correct.
perspective. They just care about themselves, right?
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. That. Yeah. Yeah.
And using the
Yeah.
train as the analogy. While these people, it's almost a haunting image of these people just waiting for the train, right?
Yes. And there is powerful imagery in there. Obviously there are the scenes of what's clearly a reference to this, sort of slave ownership with the whips that flash as the train windows go by. There's a lot of powerful imagery in there, meaningfully put in there because that is part of history. I know there's a lot of effort going on from certain quarters to try and pretend none of that ever happened,
Yeah.
or we somehow weren't responsible. We were, and it did. Um, so it was really important to me to get across the point of a whole huge range of different people, different societies, different cultures for the people waiting on the platform, and through the history, sorry, the different people that are impacted and the different people who've been kicked aside by society or certainly suppressed or worked over by larger groups in society who want all the power without any care. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And which is happening. I guess it's there's more democracy. Some can argue now, right, where like someone can get out of that poverty situation, and but I guess it's still kind of you're kind of shaking your head a little bit.
Maybe I'm getting older and cynical. I don't know, but I look at how can I don't want to turn this into a too depressing thing, but
Yeah,
we in this world we have some astonishingly wealthy people who could very easily end a lot of misery, and it really wouldn't touch the sides of them having an amazing life, but they don't and they won't. And so there are a lot of people who are always going to struggle and suffer, and live in poverty or be homeless or not have
yeah.
access to the healthcare they need, or there's a whole range of things. And I
You're
think
talking
as I
about
got
you're
old,
talking about socialism. People that's a dirty word in
so,
our
yeah,
Western
yeah,
world.
I genuinely thought when I was a lot younger, I had this really naive view that somehow things would just naturally get better because it's my generation and things are going to happen and things are going to change, and
Yeah,
we're going to work together and people are going to be come along on this journey, and we'll all be. Of course, there's always going to be differences in wealth and differences in
yeah,
opportunities, but generally speaking, people would have a roof over their head, access to food, that kind of basic standard you need
yeah,
as a human. And now I'm older going, well, that hasn't really panned out, has it?
yeah.
Hasn't really worked my idealistic plan when I was in my 20s.
Because humans are flawed. We're like selfish individuals by nature. We
Yes.
care about ourselves, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to just talk about all the negativity. There is a lot of
No, no, no.
incredible,
Yeah,
a lot of incredible people who've done incredible things with their lives, but
sure.
just collectively, we just
No,
can't
I'm
see
saying that as a
beyond.
whole. As a whole,
Yeah.
there's a selfish streak, right?
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
just describe by the theory of yin and yang, meaning that when one force becomes powerful, there's an opposite, exact opposite force that's just becomes just as powerful, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of like because it's like oh we're like look at the woke era, right? We're like oh
Yeah.
we're having more equality, and then there's this strong opposite forces like that creates itself that gets itself in the governments and says no. We're like it's that's sort of what human nature is about, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good reflection. Yeah, yeah. There are forces, good and bad, in our society. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So we like for every great thing that happens, there's an opposite bad thing that happens.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very fair analogy, and I suppose it's things when you see people and they've, like for instance, even done say a charity fundraiser and they've raised I don't know, an incredible amount of money, like let's say, I don't know, 20, 30,000. You think that's an incredible achievement for an individual to have got people to donate. And then you read another article about several billions being flushed down the toilet on some
Yeah,
vote. And you just think it's it's just so frustrating really that, that money could have got done so much good and it's just
yeah,
been wasted.
yeah. But that said, we have Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world. He's giving all his money away, right? So
Hmm. Yeah.
like
So, yeah, I'd be interested to see how that plans out. But there's plenty of other wealthy people I could think of who could give away, I don't know, what, 60% of their wealth, and it wouldn't touch the sides of them having everything they ever
no, it
wanted.
is a little
And
ridiculous, right? Yeah,
yeah,
that's what makes me yeah, like I believe in the art of capitalism, but at the same time, it's like the rich can't get too rich, the poor can't get too poor. There needs to be more
100%,
balance.
100% that. And I accept my 5 minute is not going to necessarily make the huge sea change and bring humanity together, but I'm pleased it exists and I'm pleased that what was really pleasing, I think, for me, because as I say, it has no dialogue,
Yeah,
was when I started to get the feedback from people going, "Oh, I see you meant this, and I got this from it, and I saw this," and it was really nice because it's always a risk with no dialogue that if you don't get the images right, and obviously a huge thanks to Lucy Crew for doing the animation on this, but if you don't get that right, people could watch it and go, "I have no idea what this, what's
no,
going on."
you nailed it. This is a great film, and
Thank you.
I love the use of it, black and white and color, and I
Hmm.
love the use of that kind of linear, kind of like straightaway kind of shot. So then
Yes.
you're kind of it's a good way to do animation without Like you're kind of stuck in that kind of two-dimensional kind of system, right? I know you're
Yeah.
moving in, but it's like that sort of kind of analogy to your film in many ways, right? So I like that kind of idea
Yes.
of train.
Yeah. And also working within, as you'll appreciate, working within confines, animation can become incredibly expensive very
Yeah.
quickly. So there are limitations that you have to work within to get it made for a reasonable sum. So I had that constriction as well. So some of it was practicalities of what could be done, but also I wanted to make sure that, and I'm glad you made the point as well about sort of how the visuals were done. That's really pleasing to hear that it still has to make sense. That you can't cut too many corners and end up with something that makes no sense at all. So it was great to find that balance and get that piece finished. And then to say for people like yourself to go, no, no, I got it. You know, I got what you were saying.
So then you did the set. You said that you did the sound design of the film, and then
Yes.
you're saying that Lucy like did the animation. So how did that come about? Like, how did the whole collaboration come about? You wrote this.
Um,
I'm assuming you wrote the script first, and then you kind of went from there.
yeah, correct. I wrote the script. I'd worked with Lucy on a previous animation called Coming Soon, which I was also very pleased. It makes some unsubtle messages about society and coming soon. You might see a theme here with my animations. I can always share a link to that one if you want. But that's another one that makes some fairly unsubtle observations on society.
Yeah,
But we'd actually met in a call, UK sort of artist call, where we'd been post COVID and everything saying what a struggle it is. And a lot of things that were going to happen pre-lockdown disappeared, like for a lot of people. A lot of opportunities just evaporated because everyone suddenly found themselves up against it. She'd been talking about some of the things she'd hoped to have done. We got talking after the call. That, as I say, she then worked on Coming Soon, which I was really pleased with. I say script first and Lucy animated. And then came up with this idea. Lucy was my go-to for this because we'd worked together on the first one. She knew how I think, or how I think. I knew how she worked, and it was just quite easy to say, "Yeah, here's the script. Here's the idea in my head of how I think it should look." And then she just went away and worked on it and pretty much nailed it on the first attempt. I mean, yeah, like everything, the odd tweak, the odd change, but fundamentally she nailed it on the first go.
yeah, she did. It's so you guys, yeah, it seems like you guys have a nice collaboration, and your kind of work in terms of your music and sound design. That's sort of your kind of expertise.
Um, Again, possibly out of necessity, and not. I'd been through a couple of things when I'd done a podcast a couple of years ago where I've been very lucky to get a song from a band who they'd actually granted me sort of use of it without having to make payment because it was a free to air podcast. But
Okay.
I'd still had to pay the label company universal rights for the music, and it was just such a nightmare trying to get this document done and then pay them for it. Go, I'm not paying the band who created the music. I'm having to pay you the
Yeah.
basic money to use it because obviously it's going to be on the internet, so it's worldwide and it'll be around forever and everything. So I ended up having to pay them, do a load of paperwork, and I just thought I haven't got the time to do this again. So I sat down and just thought about, well, let's see what I can basically do with the tools I've got. And obviously with a train, it's you already have that in your head about the repetitive noise of the
Yeah.
train background, and that's what led me to create that piece of work, which again possibly fortunate. I know something coming together when I was working on it, but again that was pretty much the first piece I wrote for that, and it just worked really well, and I was really pleased with it because
So you're motivated by bureaucracy. Like you kind of just did it because you didn't want to deal with any of this crap anymore.
Yeah, and cost. I've got to keep an eye on cost because I'm independent. It's
Sure.
I'd love to have
Yeah.
an infinite slush fund that I could draw on for anything I need. But
Yeah.
like everyone else in independent, it's all got to be where are my limits, where are my boundaries, and one of them was if I can create the music, I don't have to worry about copyright because it's mine,
Yeah.
and B, I haven't got to pay anyone because I'm happy to work for free for my own for my own creations.
Are you do you always do animation films? I know that you have Quench, right? The other film this year
Yeah,
is that animation?
no, Quench is live action. That's doing very well as well at the moment. I'm quite bowled over. That's what's it won? Well, it's won five. I think it's five festivals now, and there's a couple more to go. And I've been to Pinewood Studios to receive an award for it, and it's going to be screened. It's going to be on streaming at some point when I get the contract
Okay, great.
to sign. So yeah, it's incredible. And again, that was my script, my idea, but working with the team to make it better because that's always the way you do these things. You take on people's ideas and views, and it makes for a much better piece. But yeah, that was still basically filmed in 2 days flat. Two quite stressful days, but 2
Sure.
days. But it's worked really well, and it's as I say, it's received a huge number of laurels, which I'm really, really bowled over by. But all credit to the team I work with, incredible crew and cast that I work with on that. So yeah, it's been a good year, I have to say, this year for me.
That's fantastic because it said in the blog interview that you've only, like I said, you've been wanting to make films for the last 20 years, but you only the last 10 that you got the, is it confidence or kind of like chutzpah to kind of get it done, I guess.
Yeah, possibly some of that. I think also, and it's interesting. I was speaking to someone about this the other day that I think in well, certainly in my head, and I think possibly in others' heads, that you think something's going to happen. That
Yeah,
you sort of in your head, you just think something's going to happen, and after a while, you suddenly go, "I don't think it is going to happen. I think I'm going to have to be the one to actually make it happen,
yeah,
and go out there and actually do something and get it created." And that's what took me from script writing to actually making some of my scripts because you suddenly go, I put it into script festivals. I'd done well in a couple of script festivals. I'd placed second in one of them and done well in some others. And I think you sort of think, well, this is it. Any minute now, I'm going to get that call.
yeah,
Production house or a Hollywood is going to phone me and go, your script's great. We want to make it. Here's a big bag of money. And
yeah.
then obviously nothing actually happens. You don't hear from anyone. And you go back, and I thought, oh, I see. So if I keep writing scripts, no matter how good I think they are or how well they do, that doesn't necessarily turn into anything at all. It's
Yeah.
just nice at the time. And that's what drove me to go. In that case, logically, I've got to find a way to make these things. And it may not be the best version of it because of budgets and time and other things, but at least I'm making them. At least I'm getting them out there and actually making something from these scripts rather than just being things on paper for, well, possibly eternity.
And what's is it? Hopefully I'm saying this right. Let
Leitmotif,
Motif
Leitmotiv Productions.
Productions.
That's my company with Michelle. Yeah, it's something we set up a long time ago to try and collaborate. And as I say, it had gained some traction prior to lockdown in the UK. And unfortunately, like for most people, lockdown just knocked a lot of things out, just killed
Yeah.
off a lot of opportunities and things. So you almost had to start again afterwards. And that's really why I'm now focusing on hopefully filming. In my head at the moment, I've got two more shorts that I want to film. Hopefully, one this year, one next year. Sorry, one next year, and then one in 2027. And then I've got a feature that I don't know how I'm going to make it because it's quite complicated, but I think I'm going to try and find a way of getting it made just so it gets made, even if, as I say, it's not necessarily the best possible version of it. At
Yeah.
least it exists on film rather than on paper.
Gotcha. Well, I've got yeah. Best of luck to you. Seems like you're on your way in many ways.
Yeah, thank you. No,
And
thanks, Matthew. I appreciate it.
so then you're going into the features. That's your next film is going to be a feature.
Yeah, I've spoken to a director and he films a lot of horror films. A lot. I don't think he actually sleeps. But he has a lot of them almost goes straight to streaming, straight to views. So he's on this almost this chain of creation all the time. And I
Yeah.
spoke to him about, but how did you get there? He said, because you just start making them. And I know that sounds really, it sounds really, really obvious, but he
Yeah.
was right. It's like the way you get this done is you start making them. Stop. thinking about it or talking about it or dreaming about it. You've just got to get out there and make it. However, whatever favors you have to put, whatever sacrifices you have to make in your own life. I quench. I would, you look at when you ever look at a film with all the credits. I was saying, well, I was the script writer, the director, location scout, catering,
Yeah.
transport, set dressing. I did a whole slew of those jobs because
Yeah.
the budget was what the budget was.
Sure.
And that's
That's
what
what
you do.
independent
You roll your
filmmaker
sleeves up.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You double up, you triple up, you quadruple up, right?
Yeah, and all credit to the cast and crew for rolling their sleeves up as well and doing extra bits because they didn't have to. They could have stuck to their role, but
Yeah.
they also wanted to make this the best they could. So it was a huge team effort, and we are now reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, I guess it's like you minimize. Sometimes it's even good to minimize. Like sometimes things are
I agree.
too large, right?
Yeah,
Too many moving
yeah,
parts.
I I I absolutely agree. I think obviously I'm not for a moment saying if someone says here's a massive budget and every member of cast and crew you've ever dreamt of, I'm not saying that wouldn't be ideal,
Sure.
but there is something about if you have a small crew. So for instance with Quench we had DOP, lighting and sound, and then we have obviously a producer, and then we had the two actors and me hovering around doing other stuff in the background, in between looking at monitors and directing it. But we could work really quickly. We could work really quickly to get things done because there wasn't a whole load of committee sort of around it of people needing to do their bit. We could work fast, and we had to work fast because we had the location for 2 days. So, and it worked really, really well. It's draining. It's not something you could do all the time, but it did work really well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it's great. Like as long as you for the future, if you have a really solid cinematographer that you're working with, collaborating with, then everything kind of works from there in many ways, right? This is just on set, of course, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Nathan Gardner, who was the DOP on this one, is incredible. He got what I was trying to get. And he also contributed some great ideas of, well, I think the shot would be better if, or,
yeah,
you know, and all that kind of thing. And he was right on a lot of occasions. It's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is going to be better. That is going to be a much smarter way to represent this, particular bit in the film. And again, also, as I say, input from Jay and Holly, who play the two characters. Well, and everyone else. Okay, I'm not going to mention everyone, but it was a real, as I say, it was literally a real team effort of people saying, "Yeah, I'm not sure," or would it be better from this angle, or what happens if he walks in this way, or and there was a whole dialogue. So it wasn't me being precious about my script. The kernel of the idea of the script was always there, and the ending, which some people I think you'll struggle with a bit. I'm not going to give it away. I'm happy to send you a link afterwards so you can watch it, but it's
yeah,
still in festivals. But it's not, I would say, it's not your standard horror in many ways. And so some people I think have gone a bit, but a lot of people, hence the number of laws, have understood what's being said in the film.
yeah,
Which I'm, again, really pleased because you always worry when you write these scripts is, I've got it in my head. But have I got it across to anyone else? That's what I'm trying to say. That's the hard bit.
yeah. Well, I think you're on your way, man. I love this film so much, and I can't wait to see what else you
Thank you.
do. And yeah, just keep me. I'm looking forward to seeing your feature when it's done next year.
Yeah, yeah. 2020, well, 2027, 28, hopefully, yes. Fingers
Okay.
crossed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it was such a good year. You got to keep the momentum going, right? We're doing this
Absolutely.
podcast on the 29th of December, so the new year is approaching us.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm hoping to get the next one done by, or the next short done by the summer, hopefully. Which is another challenging one. I won't explain why it's challenging, but
Yeah,
you'll see when you see it why it's challenging. But again, it's going to be, well, I say fun. It's not going to be fun for the actors, but uh, it's going to be fun. Put it that way.
all right, man. Let's talk again when you make your next film. I love to
I
talk to you
appreciate
more.
it.
All right.
Thank